Hello ladies and gentlemen, Tevaron here and welcome to another episode of Friday Night Magic. This week we're going to be looking at GRUUL ramp. There are many different ways to build ramp on Magic Duels, and many people feel that GRUUL is the best choice as far as ramp decks go. And even within just the GRUUL subtype, there are a lot of different ways you can build it. This is just my take on it. There's lots of things that can be switched in and out and different ways to do it that are still very effective. But without further rambling, let's go ahead and see what I've got in this list. We are running 3 Jadi Offshoots to try to stay alive against the aggressive decks. This can gain you a whole lot of life, and even with blocking can absorb more damage. If you can start out with a Jadi Offshoot against an aggro deck, you're usually in pretty good shape. For Gatecreeper Vine, not really ramp, but a way to find you the colors you need when you need them. There are a lot less mountains in this deck and red sources as a whole than there are green, so Gatecreeper fixes that issue. We are running 3 Rolling Thunder. A lot of people also run Ravaging Blaze. I've chosen not to. Some people run Ravaging Blaze over Rolling Thunder. I just think Rolling Thunder is the better choice in the situation. Better for keeping control of the board at any rate. Nissa, Vastwood Seer. And she is particularly good in this deck in her Planeswalker form. 2 Radiant Flames. I really wish you could run more, but 2 of any particular rare is the limit on Magic Duels, so we are stuck with that. This is a good board sweeper. Also keeps you in the game versus aggro. For Nissa's Pilgrimage, this is our ramp spell du jour. Gets us to the threshold, which in this deck is right around 6 mana, where you need to start dropping threats. 3 Zendikar Incarnate. I know a lot of people had gone away from Zendikar Incarnate. Still others had stayed with it. I think it's actually particularly good right now to drop this on turn 4 as a big threat, both against aggro and against other decks as well. 2 From Beyond, which serves the dual purpose, well, triple purpose really, of giving us blockers, ramping our mana because these blockers can be sacked for mana, and tutor effect to search up one of our Eldrazi. For Mwonvuli Acid-Moss, the card everyone loves to hate, and the card I really wish that they would remove from Magic Duels or put some things in here that's better at fighting against it. 2 Outland Colossus, the first of our really sort of in-game threats. Zendikar Incarnate can finish the game on its own, but when we get up into the 5 and on drops, that's where you start to see the real beef of the deck. 2 Chandra's Ignition. This is our second board sweeper in the deck, though you do have to have a creature out to use Chandra's Ignition, as it uses the creature's power to deal damage to everything else. 1 Oblivion Sower. We're only running 2 Eldrazi in the deck. Oblivion Sower is the first of them. It's a big defense creature that can hold the board and also ramps you. 2 Nissa's Renewal, which also serves as ramp, and the integral life gain is again something that can keep you in the game versus aggro decks. 2 Plated Crusher, which at this time I think are just straight up better than Gaia's Revenge. Gaia's Revenge is great versus counterspell based decks and or decks with targeted removal, but Plated Crusher can take a whole lot more and keep going. 1 Omnath, Locus of Rage. If you can play Omnath and then drop some lands, you pretty well lock up the game. He's just that good. And finally, Uladaddy, the Ceaseless Hunger, the threat of choice if you can get to 10 mana on Magic Duels. There's just nothing else that does it as good as he does. The mana base is very simple. We're running 6 Mountain, 12 Forest, 2 Cinder Glade, 1 Canopy Vista, and that white land may seem out of place, but we can fetch it with Mwonvuli Acid-Moss. There's actually no white in the deck, as you've seen, but this will give us a 3rd color for our Radiant Flames if necessary, and 2 Rootbound Crag. And that's 60 cards. That's the deck. Let's play some Magic. Okay, this is a hand that is worth keeping, so we're going to do just that. Would be nice if the Ulamog was not in our opening hand, but that's something you have to deal with sometimes. We would be able to drop Gatecreeper into potentially another Gatecreeper if we don't draw something else that we want to cast on turn 3. We see a mountain from our opponent. Luckily, we don't see a little dude out there getting ready to attack us. And we will get a forest with this first Gatecreeper. Yes, we do. Generally, I fetch mountains with the Gatecreeper Vines because we need the forest still in the deck for our pilgrimages and Nissa herself. But I would like to have a backup green source for now. And there are cards in the deck that cost more than 1 green in their casting cost. Looks like we're possibly playing against Thopters. It's not a for sure thing, but most decks that you see in Izzet colors, red, blue, are Thopter decks. And yeah, Perilous Mirror is also a staple of those decks. We're not super concerned with Perilous Mirror at the moment. Well, there's the Acid-Moss. And speaking of the devil, we'll go ahead and play the forest that we fetched and play our second Gatecreeper Vine. And again, I'm going to get another forest here, because this hand is a little heavy on the red source side. After this, I probably will not be fetching up any more forests unless it's with Nissa's Pilgrimage or Nissa herself. We'll use Acid-Moss to get our white source to prepare us for Radiant Flames if we happen to draw one. Alright, there's a Nissa's Renewal. That is good. We'll drop another forest, and then we'll Acid-Moss our opponent's mountain since they only have one of them out. We're liable to get counterspelled here, and we did. So that's good for them and bad for us. Not the end of the world, but we certainly would have liked to have taken them off of red and ramped our mana. If that had gone through, we would have been in a position to cast Nissa's Renewal next turn. As it is, we aren't. So here we have an interesting conundrum. We can cast Rolling Thunder on our turn to kill this Whirler Rogue and one of the other things. Probably one of the Thopters because they can fly. Or we can wait. And there's a Gatecreeper Vine. We also could cast it to kill just all of the artifact creatures. That will put us off of playing Nissa's Renewal next turn, barring top decking a land though. I think it's quite important to preserve our life total versus these Thopter decks, so we're going to Rolling Thunder. It would be very bad if we did not do this and then our opponent dropped a Chief of the Foundry next turn and swung at us for a lot of damage. I'm okay with losing a Gatecreeper Vine. And still, if we do draw land, we can still Nissa's Renewal next turn. Barring that, will be Gatecreeper Vine. And telling time from the opponent. And the game tapped both their blue sources. So we probably don't have to worry about counter spells. Especially now that they've played a tapped blue source. You don't see Sigil of Valor being played much. And we will be taking 2 here. Like to keep the Gatecreeper Vine out for now, in case there's something bigger to block a little bit later on. Ooh, From Beyond. So this is going to be a decent turn for us because we can Gatecreeper into a land and then still play From Beyond, leading us into Nissa's Renewal on the next turn. Yes, I would. Give me a mountain, please. Play the mountain and the From Beyond. So between the Nissa's Renewal and the From Beyond, we should be in a position, not next turn, but the turn after, to play Uladaddy here. Very interested to see what the opponent has for us at this point. Okay, Reclusive Artificer. That's going to do 1 damage to the Gatecreeper Vine. That's a little strange. And again, I am not going to block. We will be gaining 7 life this turn, so that's not a big deal there. There's Zendikar Incarnate as well. However, I am on the Nissa's Renewal plan. This will take us up to 9 lands. We will get Mountain, Mountain, Mountain. Confirm. So, we should be able to cast Ulamog next turn. We have 9 mana. We already have a 10th in play with the Scion, and From Beyond will spit out another one for us. At this point, we're kind of off the plan of using Ulamog to deny our opponent a color of mana, so we will most likely be using it on their creatures. I am going to take this again. We're not in any danger of dying at this point. And honestly, it will take something pretty good from the opponent to get us out of this game here. And that's a little bit of a waste. The Fiery Impulse on our Scion, we're just going to get another one. Now they could have a counter spell in hand and be able to counter Ulamog. Ulamog's exile ability will still resolve because that is on cast, not on enters the battlefield. And we are going to do that. Try to get these critters here. And we did. And Uladaddy comes onto the battlefield, ready to rumble. We shall hope we don't get Traitorous Instinct or Act of Treason, and we are. We can block. That's one of the reasons I have kept these guys out. Having that happen twice in a row, though, could be very bad for us. Alright, losing some lands. We need to block here, so we will. If they have another Act of Treason or Traitorous Instinct, we're going to lose this game. So we can do 10, and then 8 from Rolling Thunder, which is not enough to outright kill our opponent. Let's go ahead and attack. Confirm. Then we are going to Acid-Moss. Go ahead and get a Cinder Glade, that's fine. And play our Zendikar Incarnate. The Rolling Thunder doesn't get the job done here, so there's no reason to play it. Okay. So, hopefully this is meaning there is no stealing of creatures going on now. And it seems to be the case. Exquisite Firecraft, alrighty. Well, that will be the ball game. Our opponent has no mana up, no cards in hand, so we don't have to worry about counter spells on our Rolling Thunder. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1, and the rest to the face. Though we could have killed them just straight out with the Rolling Thunder. Swing in for 10. Mill all but 3 cards of their library. I'll see you in the next one. Okay. I think we can keep this. It's a little iffy. We will need to top deck a land or a Nissa's Pilgrimage. Something to get one more land so that our Acid-Mosses could come online. But if we do that, we should be in fairly good shape. And being on the play helps a lot too. Oops. Don't know what was going on there. A little bit of latency or something. Game hung on our attack phase when we don't have actually anything to be attacking with. Okay, well, there's the third Acid-Moss. Let's keep our fingers crossed for a 4th land. Yes, we will be getting a mountain for certain. And if we can get a 4th land, we should be in super good shape here. Looks like we may be playing a mirror or pseudo-mirror. And in that case, being the first to get to Acid-Moss would be a huge advantage. Well, that was not our 4th land. We have one more turn to draw it. Let's hope that we do that. Because if we miss that 4th land and then our opponent starts Acid-Mossing us, it will probably be game over. There's a Visionary. We're not running Visionaries. Alright, come on, land. Land off the top. Come on. Yes! Alrighty. Well, we will go for the duel. And in this instance, I'm going to get a Cinder Glade. I want that 2nd red before I start fetching up a white source that we may not ever need. And now, if we can just keep our opponent down with Acid-Moss, we should handily win this game. Evil Leap. Alright, so we'll be Acid-Mossing the opponent's forest here. Try to keep them off of green mana. Maybe this is not a mirror at all, except in colors. This, well, our opponent's had enough. Unless that's just a server issue that disconnected them. Though I could certainly understand if you get frustrated dealing with Acid-Moss. We'll go ahead and get the white mana here this time. Looks like our opponent's more of a grindy value deck than a ramp deck. Not really concerned with Blighted Gorge. We will hopefully be able to keep them from getting to the mana to use that. Now, I could drop Outland Colossus here, but I honestly want to keep up the mana denial, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll go ahead and get the 2nd Cinder Glade on that one. And pass the turn over to our opponent. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all if our opponent leaving right there was actually a server issue, especially with the little hiccup at the beginning of the game. Alright, here I'm going to drop a Plated Crusher because we have the mana to do that. It is trample, so it will get through. And it is hexproof, so it will not be removed. We could Chandra's Ignition here. I think I would rather just attack, though. So we will swing with one Plated Crusher and then post-combat play our 2nd Plated Crusher. Alright. Here we go. Still 2 mana away from Ulamog here. And this should be game. Between what we have on board and then both the Rolling Thunder and Chandra's Ignition in our hand. Well, that'll absorb 3. Putting you to 2. Well, let's not Ignition, let's Thunder. Well, Thunder for 3. Oh, that's fine. Tap those. I don't think we can keep this. We've got far too much red requiring cards in our hands and none. No forest, no red sources. And we can't keep this either. Jeez. I'm going to keep this. And we hope to draw a forest. Come on, forest off the top. Ooh. We're versus red aggro as well. Well, that was very fortuitous. Let's get a second green source first here, shall we? Alright. Yeah, if that forest hadn't come off the top right then, we probably would have been just dead in the water. Okay, we'll be taking 2 here, I think. Because I'm not really wanting to do this Radiant Flames on our next turn. I'd rather cast Gatecreeper Vines. Let's do that. Now we will get a mountain. There we go. And I guess we'll go ahead and play the mountain. That's fine. Hopefully we can get our opponent to commit more creatures to the board that we can wipe with this Radiant Flames. Okay, a Cronian Sergeant. A Crowan Sergeant. First strike Renown, okay. I think I'm going to be blocking this time. So we will block and then we'll sweep. Absorb the damage. Now we'll get a 3-for-1 with our Radiant Flames here. That's fine. 2 is definitely enough. And that puts us in decent shape. Going into turn 4 of the opponents with 18 life is pretty good versus a mono red deck. Alright, looks like the opponent does still have threats to deploy. So we will probably be gate creeping again. Ooh. Zendikar Incarnate is pretty good as well. I think I'm going to play the Zendikar Incarnate. That gets a good threat on our side into play. The easiest way to beat these mono red decks is to deal with their early threats and then clock them really fast. Alright, that gives him +1/+1 in first strike. Yes, so we don't want to block this because a Fiery Impulse would blow us out, and so would a Titan Strength. our creature would die and theirs would live in that case because it's first strike. Alright, so we took a bit of damage that turn. Let's do a bit of damage of our own, shall we? We will Gatecreeper. Getting another mountain. Yes. And then we will play that mountain and Acid-Moss our opponent. All the while making our Zendikar Incarnate bigger. We'll get our white source now. And then we're going to swing for 7. Next turn, we can play Omnath and then trigger him with a forest. Assuming Omnath is a creature that identifies its gender as male. It may not be. And we could still die here as well, because we cannot block this Glory Chaser. It has Menace. And next turn, if our opponent has another land, it can just give it straight out unblockable with the Rogue's Passage. Actually, our best draw here would probably be Rolling Thunder. That didn't happen. So let's go ahead and play Omnath. And we'll drop a forest to get an elemental token. And then swing for 8. Putting our opponent to 5. And unless they have some sort of damage mitigation, they will die next turn. Because any one of these 3 creatures is lethal if it gets through. This guy can deal 5 if they play a land and activate the Rogue's Passage, but that only puts us to 3, and they'd be tapped out. They would need 2 blockers. Well, I guess that's that then. Guess we'll be finishing out this game versus the AI, which is still thinking, well, there's 1 blocker. They need 1 more to be able to survive until next turn. For 1 more turn, I guess you could say. Because Glory Chaser and the Glory Chaser could block. Yeah, they need 1 more blocker. This guy's not enough. So I suppose we're swinging for the win here. And if they kill one of our elementals, then that's 3 extra damage. So here we go. Fiery Impulse. Okay, well, I mean, the AI does some silly things sometimes. That was one of them. And this should be it. 5 health, 5 damage at minimum coming through. So, on to the next challenge. Alright, this hand seems alright. We will keep it. We have Gatecreeper Vine into Acid-Moss. And we are on the play, so that's a lot better. Acid-Moss, as a lot of things are, is much better when you're on the play. Alright, opponent just going to let that wild sit there. We will be dropping a Vines. And we'll get a forest with this, which will take us up to the 3 green sources we need to play a Plated Crusher. After that, we should be fetching mountains. There we go. Oh, well, I fetched a mountain that time. That's fine. I'll get a green source off the Acid-Moss there. That was a misclick on my part. Ooh, well, Well, let's play the mountain that we fetched, not give our opponent any unnecessary information there. Hopefully they are not going to hold up counter magic this turn. Though I kind of suspect they may. And if they do, I don't think I'm going to play the Acid-Moss. And they did. So let's just pass back. Not play into counter magic here. An Artificer's Epiphany. So we may not be playing against Thopters. Though we still very well could. Epiphany would be fine in a Thopters deck, as many artifacts as they have. And it looks like it is Thopters. So we will be Acid-Mossing now. Ooh, Chandra's Ignition. Actually... no, we'll go ahead and Acid-Moss, that's fine. Acid-Moss an island, rather, and get our white source. Chandra's Ignition's really good against Thopters, if you can get it to resolve. Which not a lot of Thopter decks are super heavy on counter spells at any rate. Alright, so I'm not going to be blocking, we'll just go ahead and take 4 here. Looks like they're at least representing a counter spell here. We will go ahead and... I think I'm going to do Rolling Thunder. That way we can do double Zendikar Incarnate next turn, and one of them should resolve. Yeah. Let's go ahead and Rolling Thunder for 5. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. This is probably going to get countered. Yep, Spell Shrivel. So there's a counter spell that our opponent was representing. And they're going to impulse our Gatecreeper Vine. That's fine by me. Guess there really isn't a lot in our deck that Fiery Impulse gets, so might as well use it on the Vine. Alright, Thopter Engineer. So we're going to be taking 5 here, going to 11. Opponent's just dumping their hand, which may get them there, but hopefully not. Alright, we'll go down to 11. Alright, Nissa's Pilgrimage. So here we are going to double Incarnate. I don't want to just play the single. I could play the single Incarnate and then Nissa's Pilgrimage, but that would leave us getting blown out potentially from removal on this. Though with the Pilgrimage we would have enough mana to cast another Incarnate and the Ignition in the same turn. So yeah, let's go ahead and Pilgrimage. That way, ignitioning one Incarnate will not kill the other. Okay. So we can't block. Getting hit down here to 5. Well, our opponent does not have enough mana to activate this Foundry this turn. They could still have a counterspell up. So let's start off with Radiant Flames. Yeah, that's fine. And I actually do want this to be countered, but it's not, so that's fine as well. So attack for 10, shall we? Would have loved to see the Radiant Flames get countered and then been able to Chandra's Ignition. I'm not going to risk the Ignition getting countered here. I'm going to play another Zendikar Incarnate. They may not actually have a counter spell. They may just be posturing. Or actually have nothing that could be cast right then. They have, however, shown us a spell shrivel, so... Alright, passing back. So they can activate that Foundry this time. So let's get them to do that. That will tap them to the point that we don't have to worry about counter spells. Only 1 mana counter spell is Dispel, and it cannot hit Chandra's Ignition, since Chandra's Ignition is a sorcery. Alright. And that will do it for this episode of Friday Night Magic. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like below. It really does help. And until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.
Unspoken, with silence to blame. How she trusts, who gained the courage to understand why it came to be this way. These words of wisdom